Hey, look at that. We're live, ladies and germs. Let me move this over here. This webcam I have sucks, but it's the only one that I have right now. So, just going to have to deal with it for a little while. But yes, believe it or not, we're back to doing NASCAR race reviews. I know, it's crazy. But I did say that if they got rid of the playoffs, I would come back to doing race reviews. And even though it's not completely what I want, I can live with it. We're going to get into all of that. There's a lot of shit to talk about. This is probably going to be a long ass episode, opening episode of the 2026 season. So strap yourselves in, grab a cold one, maybe some popcorn, and settle down because this is going to be one hell of an opening episode to 2026. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. This is The Fuel. Hey, what's happening, ladies and germs? This is the PackerMan, and welcome to tonight's edition of The Fuel, where tonight we will be doing our race review of the 2026 Cookout Clash at Bowman Gray Stadium for the start of the 2026 season. And if you're wondering why I have an extra screen over here, this is my new Chromebook that my mother got for me for $20, which is nice. Yeah, you don't usually get Chromebooks for that cheap. So she got me a Chromebook, which I can probably put some good use with extra video editing for other projects and all that other shit. Especially if I'm on the go. So it doesn't look like it supports DaVinci Resolve, which is what I usually use for my video editing. So that kind of sucks. But, you know, it is what it is. I'm pretty sure it can support other video editors. So it is what it is. But, yeah, where do I even begin with this first episode of The Fuel for 2026? Well, I guess I should start with this. Regarding the lack of content on my channel other than, you know, live streams of Spare Parts Wreckfest and all that other good stuff. One of the main reasons is I just kind of had a lack of, what's the word I'm looking for here? A lack of motivation, I guess you could say. I'm going to make tea for this one. I have a feeling it's going to be a long episode. Yes, it's going to be a long ass episode because there's a lot to talk about. There's a lot of shit to talk about. But first and foremost, I haven't been making as much content over the last 4 months. I just haven't really had the motivation. You know, I mean, last year my channel was just, its growth just was excruciatingly slow. You know, I set the goal last year for 500 subscribers and didn't even get to 400. So that was disappointing. I think I got all of 30 subscribers last year. Of course, going to a motorsports only channel probably didn't help matters. So, and it kind of resulted in the fuel getting cut short because I didn't feel like doing IMSA reviews or IndyCar reviews because, let's be completely honest here, motorsports in 2025 as a whole completely sucked dick. It was just not a good season overall for a lot of different reasons. But with that being said, there is content that I am making currently. I got a shit ton of edited episodes of Spare Parts and E-Racing United. I'm actually combining the two into one show. It's going to be called PackerMan's E-Racing Recap. It's basically the same format as before, but it's just all going to be combined into one show instead of having all of these different shows. So, Spare Parts High Gear has come to an end, and so has Overdrive for E-Racing United. But that's just because I'm combining the two into one to make it a lot less congested, I guess you could say. But there are some other shows that are going to be making a debut or returning. First and foremost, I want to try to get back into doing Flea Market Hunter, hopefully this year, because I haven't done an episode in almost 2 years at this point. Another show that I want to make a return is Tornado Tales. I haven't done an episode of that one for almost 2 years, so that's another one that's coming back. But there's another show that will be debuting. This one kind of came out of nowhere. I just kind of decided to do it on the fly. It's going to be called, it's kind of a dumb working title, but it's going to be called Packer Plays Casino Games featuring Spin Quest. And you're probably wondering, what the hell is Spin Quest? Well, it's actually an online casino, basically, where you actually have people like doing actual casino games live, like craps and baccarat and all that other shit. It's not actually for money per se. You can buy coins and stuff to play the games, but it's not for any money or anything. It's just for funsies, basically. And I've done 2 episodes. I've recorded 2 episodes. I haven't actually edited them yet because I haven't even gotten a intro video made for it yet. So that's something that's going to be in the pipeline. And it's something that's completely unique brand new to the channel. I'm not saying unique because there's a lot of casino-based and gambling-based YouTube channels. But as far as the content on my channel, this is a first-time deal for my channel. So there's that. And then another one that's going to be brand new is called Our Honor. Let me try that again. Our Honor Defend Archives, because, I'm a Buckeye fan. And it's basically going to be like, kind of a look back at the glory years of Ohio State and all the great things that they've done over the years. So that's something that's also going to be in the pipeline as well. But a lot of the stuff is shit that's going to take some time to edit, because I'm also doing Isaac the Survivalist, although I might just edit all the stuff that's left and kind of just do Fallout 76 as the lone Let's Play, kind of the forever Let's Play, I guess you could say. Because, yeah, it's been over a year and it's only at 19 subscribers, so you can see where that's going. Not anywhere. But, yeah, there's, the month of January, definitely really slow, but it's going to start picking up here in the month of February. I got a lot of shit to edit, including for PackerMan's E-Racing Recap. I got 20 freaking videos I got to edit. A lot of them I can get through pretty quickly, but editing all the stuff from the Neptune Nats from this past December, having to mash all that together, that's always a fucking headache. Because the runtime for that video is usually around 2.5 to 3 hours. So getting all of that edited together is going to be a pain in the ass. But, it is what it is. They don't know if we don't know if we're going to be actually doing a one-off event this coming Wednesday. Which, if we take a week off to prepare for SRU, which is coming a week from this coming Thursday, then that's fine. We can always, I can always use a week off from it. So that way I'll have a little bit more time because I'm usually off on Wednesdays anyway, with how my work schedule is at the moment. I usually work Mondays, Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays right now. Because let's be honest here, the job I'm at right now, which is called On Track, it fucking sucks. It's not a great job, but I mean, it is what it is. I don't like it, but I still go to it because I got bills to pay. So it is what it is. But yeah, there is a lot of shit coming down the pipeline for this channel in 2026. Some returning favorites and some new shows that are going to premiere hopefully this year. And of course, the return of the Fuel to NASCAR reviews. So let's go ahead and get into talking about stuff that's happened since the last episode of the Fuel, because I was talking about how the lawsuit was going on, and then there was a lot of stuff that happened after that. So the lawsuit itself. If you want a complete breakdown of all the shit that happened in the lawsuit, but before and afterwards, Eli Productions put out a video, and it's an excellent video called Michael Jordan versus NASCAR. It is an absolutely excellent video. I would highly recommend watching it, which basically breaks down everything. And here's the thing with how things went with that lawsuit in regards to NASCAR. I remember when the lawsuit first happened, like it was first filed, all the way back in October of 2024. You remember me saying that NASCAR better get this settled. Because I said this I don't know how many times, they do not want to get to the discovery phase. Because then all of the financials and all the skeletons are going to come out of the closet. I said that time and time again, and it was going to be a very bad look for NASCAR if that happened. I'm going to let that hang in the air for a minute. And also notice I don't have the episode music up yet because I'm going to hold off on that for a minute. Because I want to kind of get through all the shit that's happened over the past 2-3 months before we start delving into the race review. But yeah, I basically said that NASCAR needs to not have this go to Discovery, or it was going to be a very bad look for them. Not only was I proven correct, I got far more than I bargained for. Because when the financials came out, which showed how absolutely skewed it was, I mean, it was disgusting. Like, on average, each team was losing about, in 2024, they lost about $2.5 to $3 million over the course of that season. And I'm talking about every single team. Whereas NASCAR profited over $100 million. The sanctioning body profited $100 million. And apparently, the discrepancy from the previous year was even worse. So what does that tell you? It tells me that NASCAR just wanted to keep all the money for themselves and give the teams fuck all, to just try to survive with. And it's just like, this just shows how, it's just one of many things that showed how inherently evil this leadership is. And how absolutely fucking retarded they are on top of that. Why do I say that? Because they evidently don't understand or realize or don't care probably a combination of all three, honestly, that this deal between the race teams and the sanctioning body, it's supposed to be a it's supposed to be a symbiotic relationship. One cannot exist without the other. So, the least that NASCAR can do, I mean, they're profiting $100 million per year. You mean to tell me that you can't give up even half of that to help these teams out? That way they can at least have money to function with, basically, to run day-to-day operations, to maybe turn a fucking profit. I mean, when Hendrick Motorsports, the winningest team in NASCAR history, who won the championship last year with Kyle Larson, they haven't turned a profit in 10 years. Ironically, according to Eli's video, that was when the charters first came into existence. That's kind of coincidental, isn't it? The court documents claim only 3 teams say they made money last year, and an average owners reported lost more than $2.2 million per car. Yeah. That's like I just said. And whereas NASCAR basically profited $100 million. I mean, it's ridiculous. I mean, they could at least give half of that to the teams. So that way they could cover operating costs and all that other shit. Because as we know, sponsorship is hard to come by nowadays. So that was something. But what really took it over the edge and confirmed everything that I had felt about this leadership group, and I'm talking about Steve Phelps, Steve O'Donnell, Elton Sawyer, and Jim France. The text messages. Now, as you recall, I was heavily critical of Richard Childress back during the Xfinity race after the whole schmozzle with himself and Sheldon Creed over what happened in that race. I was highly critical of him, to the point where that became the most watched episode of The Fuel in its entire history. But make no mistake about it, as highly critical as I was of Richard Childress, the fact that he has lasted this long in NASCAR, over 50 years at this point, I mean, he is, without a doubt, one of the pillars of this sport. And for the commissioner at the time, Steve Phelps, to basically say in text form that he needed to be taken out back and flogged because he's a stupid redneck. I mean, it's one thing if someone like me, is that critical of Richard Childress and says that kind of thing. It's a completely different look when it's the commissioner of the fucking sport. And then on top of that, they apparently wanted to put a knife in the Superstar Racing experience. Because there was another text message from Steve Phelps that said that we need to put a knife in this trash series. And apparently they were looking into legal precedents and all that other shit to see if there was a legal way to shut it down. If that's not monopolistic behavior, then I don't know what is. And here's the thing. Judge Kenneth Bell actually ruled. It was I forget exactly what it was called, but it was a judgment made before they even got to the trial date, where NASCAR was ruled that they are a monopoly. Because, NASCAR's defense was, well, if you don't want to race with us, you can go somewhere else and race. And it's like, you fucking kidding me, dude? First of all, you can't just completely take one racing operation and shift it to something else, because it's completely different cars. because these cars are the intellectual property of NASCAR. You know, they're built to NASCAR specifications, which is another finger in the pie that they had. I mean, let's be honest, where does a large majority of that money go? You know, and they were also buying up all the tracks and all this other shit. So there was no question that NASCAR was a monopoly. Now, what was going to be determined is whether or not they were using that monopoly power maliciously. And apparently, Jim France's time on the on the witness stand, apparently it was bad, like really bad. Which Jeff Gluck even said his testimony was incredibly bad. So it was getting pretty obvious that NASCAR, it was not looking good for them in this case. And then the final nail in the coffin for NASCAR in this case was the open letter from Johnny Morris. And for those of you that don't know who Johnny Morris is, he is the founder of Bass Pro Shops. Yeah, pretty big sponsor in NASCAR. Sponsors multiple race teams in the Cup Series, including the 19 car for Joe Gibbs Racing and the 3 car for Richard Childress Racing. And needless to say, when he saw the text messages from Steve Phelps after they were basically shown in Discovery, he was, well, I don't think disgusted is a strong enough word. I mean, it basically got to the point where he actually wrote an open letter basically condemning Steve Phelps and basically calling for his resignation or his firing and calling for a settlement to this lawsuit. Because Michael Jordan had already said, I mean, he's not going down without a fight, because there was another guy by the name of Urinating Tree who made a video, and he said, and it's the most accurate description of Michael Jordan and his bankroll, because Michael Jordan's worth $3.5 billion. And he was like, Michael Jordan doesn't just have fuck you money, which I've said numerous times. He has scorched earth so he can say he has fuck you money. It was so fucking hilarious. And it's the truth. I mean, as competitive as Michael is, I mean, you get him pissed off and it's going to be hell. And I even said, yeah, they're in fucking trouble, because Michael basically said, yeah, I'm going down in flames. So it's like, yeah, they were fucked. And I think they realized that. I mean, they had already lost in the court of public opinion, and obviously so. Of course, you can't say that about the NASCAR defenders. I mean, they were saying, well, the teams don't have a case, and it's just like, really? You can't be that fucking retarded, dude. Seriously. I mean, if you didn't see all the antitrust violations that NASCAR had been doing over the last 10 years, you're probably blind, deaf, retarded, or all three. So that's how I feel about that. But evidently, after it was all said and done, NASCAR finally settled with the teams. And it was a huge victory for the teams because they got what they wanted. And all the 13 teams that didn't participate in the lawsuit, they all benefited from it. So it's like they should be sending Denny Hamlin, Michael Jordan, and Bob Jenkins a fucking gift basket, because of all the things that all the other teams are going to benefit from this. First of all, permanent charters. That was one thing that the teams have been asking for a long ass time, was permanent charters, because they want their charters to have everlasting value. They want to have value. So that way they have something to invest in for the future. Another thing was a bigger seat at the table, so that way they can, coerce with NASCAR to talk about potential rule changes and all that other shit. And the biggest thing was a larger cut of the TV revenue. NASCAR just signed a $7.7 billion deal over the next 7 years. It's a 7-year deal worth $7.7 billion in TV rights money. You mean to tell me that you can't give the teams a good chunk of that so that way they can cover their operating costs? Like, give me a fucking break. So, huge win for the teams. And then on top of that, Steve Phelps, in the wake of all of this, actually ended up resigning as the commissioner of NASCAR. And there were some people that were trying to defend him, like, oh, well, it was a huge loss for the sport of NASCAR. And I just look at that and I go, are you fucking for real? This is a guy that presided over perhaps the worst decline viewership-wise in organized sports. And, I mean, let's be honest here. It doesn't matter who you are. I mean, you're not going to... I mean, your tenure shouldn't last after all that. I mean, it was obvious that his time at NASCAR was going to be coming to an end one way or another. Because, I mean, NASCAR had pretty much lost the garage at that point. Especially after all that shit. So, there's that. But then, I mean, I don't even think it was a week removed. I think it was only like a little over a week maybe removed. And we get to the second half of December 2025, and definitely one of the most tragic off seasons in NASCAR history. December the 18th, 2025. That's when we lost Greg Biffle. In a plane crash that killed him, his wife, his 2 children, and 3 others in a plane crash. They were on their way to Cletus McFarland's track. I think it's called the Freedom Factory, for an event there. And I guess there was some kind of mechanical problem. They tried to land back at the airport and it ended up crashing and nobody survived. And it was such a tragic event because not only was, Greg Biffle, a great driver, but in the last year, and I remember doing a video on Burnt Rubber about this, and I called it Greg Biffle is a Hero. Because he was instrumental in helping people out who were victims of Hurricane Helene. And a lot of the people in the Carolinas that were trapped and couldn't get supplies or anything of that nature. And Greg Biffle literally took his helicopter and was basically flying supplies to those people in need. And in my eyes, that made him a hero. And then that happens just a little over a year later. Just a tragic set of circumstances. And then, I forget exactly when this happened, but it was right after Christmas, and right before New Year's. Denny Hamlin's home that his parents were living in caught fire. Don't know the exact cause of it, but both of his parents were severely burned. And unfortunately, it resulted in the death of his father, Dennis Hamlin. And what made it even more tragic was the fact that he was already in hospice care to begin with. So he didn't have he was suffering from a terminal illness, and he probably didn't have much longer on this earth anyway. But for that to happen and for him to go out like that, and this and this after Denny Hamlin lost the championship the way that he did. And then everything with the lawsuit and the trial and everything he had to go through with that. And then to go and lose his father like that. And then on top of that, we learned that while he was going through the debris of his home, he actually fell and retore his previously injured shoulder. The dude just can't catch a break right now. And I'm just going to be completely honest. I have been, as most of you know who have watched this channel for years, I have been highly critical of Denny Hamlin in the past. To the point where I remember that race at Talladega where he basically cut underneath the yellow line and basically got away with it. And I basically blew out my voice just cursing at him. I have never been a Denny Hamlin fan whatsoever. But, I mean, when you look at what's happened the last couple months, I mean, it has basically turned him into probably the most sympathetic figure that NASCAR has right now. So, I think all of the vitriol that I once held for him it's not completely evaporated, but it's nowhere near as strong as it used to be. And honestly, hitting on Denny Hamlin at this point just to hate him, it just feels kind of gross at this point. And that's how I feel about that. So now we come to 2026. And NASCAR finally revealed what the championship format was going to be for 2026. And it was not going to be the playoffs. They are going back to the chase for the championship. So basically, 10 races. After 26 races, a points reset, and then 10 races to determine the champion. Now, obviously, I wanted the full 36 because I think it's the most fair way to determine a champion. But at the same time, if I said that I wasn't pleased with this change, then I would be a liar. Because while I wanted the 36, this I can live with. I watched Kamikaze Games' live stream of the chase announcement. I love the fact that he was wearing a cheeseburger hat. Hilarious. Yep. Of course, he was also another one of the guys that was, going for the 36 because he actually made a video that said it was titled "It Must Be 36," which I agreed with. But this I can live with. Especially with some of the changes that they did make. Because the fact that we are finally done with the playoffs makes me... When I heard that the playoffs were finally going to be abolished, it literally made me go, hallelujah! So to say that this was a positive change is an understatement. It's not completely what I want because I still want the 36, but I can live with it. The playoffs are no more. The winning you're in is no more. That was another one that made me go, holla fucking Luya. Because other than the playoffs, the winning you're in rule was perhaps the dumbest thing that NASCAR had ever come up with. And they have a long fucking laundry list of dumb shit that they have done in the past. Another thing that they're doing, awarding more points to the winner. 15 more points to be exact. So now instead of 40 points, it's 55 points to the winner. Second place gets 35 points. That is a 20-point gap from first to second. Imagine if they would have just done that all the way back in the 2004 preseason instead of going to the chase to begin with. Because literally the only thing we asked for was more points to the winner. That was literally all they needed to do. And it could have saved us 20 years of this bullshit. They're going to keep the stages. And the stage yellows. The stages I'm fine with because anytime you can award bonus points, I'm cool with. Which is why I think they should bring back bonus points for leading laps and maybe add some bonus points for winning the pole on qualifying day. You know, that sort of thing. Because anytime you can award more points for doing good in a race, I'm all for it. One thing I'm not a fan of is how they changed the fastest lap bonus point. Where apparently, if you go to the garage and come back out laps down, you are completely ineligible to get the fastest lap bonus, which I think is pretty fucking stupid. So there goes all the intrigue of that. So good job, NASCAR, on that. One step forward, one step back. But another change to the chase format that I do agree with is the amount of points that are between each position. I still don't like the fact that they're keeping 16 drivers in it. That's still way too goddamn much. But one thing I will agree with is they're putting a bigger point increment, like between first and second, is 25 points. That's a big amount of points. Whereas in the old chase, it was just 5 points between each position, which is stupid. At least with this, there's a bigger point gap in between each position. So, okay. That I can live with. Of course, it also helps that they finally put the championship finale back at Homestead. So, there's that. Which brings me to the 2026 schedule. So, 2026 NASCAR schedule. Because there are some races that I am looking forward to. The Truck Series is going to St. Petersburg this year, which is fucking crazy. So yeah, the fastest lap restriction: drivers who enter the garage during a race will no longer be eligible for the fastest lap bonus point. If the driver's fastest lap was achieved before they entered the garage, it will still stand. Again, stupid. don't like it. But so well, the cookout class should have been February 1st, but was postponed to February 4th, of course. Apparently, the duels are no longer known as the duels at Daytona. It's now America 250 Florida duel at Daytona because, why not? But of course, we had the Daytona 500 on February the 15th, President's Day weekend. Auto Trader 400 at Echo Park, which is Atlanta. But then Circuit of the Americas has been moved all the way up to the third race of the year. The Duramax Grand Prix at Circuit of the Americas, March the 1st. So, this is the earliest that we've seen a road course in a long ass time. Then they go to Phoenix. Of course, Circuit of the Americas is basically the beginning of the West Coast swing. Then you have Phoenix, and then Vegas. And then Darlington for the Goodyear 400. Cookout 400 at Martinsville, March the 29th. And then we get a week off for Easter. And then it's Bristol for the Food City 500. And then Kansas. And then Talladega. Texas Motor Speedway on May the 3rd. And then Watkins Glen. One of the biggest changes to the schedule. Because normally Watkins Glen is held in August. But this year, they moved it all the way up to May the 10th. Okay. So that's kind of weird. Another change was Dover. No longer has a points event. It's now holding the All-Star race at Dover. And of course, it's going to be a day event because Dover doesn't have lights. I've heard people say in the past that, well, I mean, it's a great facility. Yeah, but the on-track product sucks dick. So Dover gets, with the new format change, now a driver could get a maximum of 76 points in a race. Yeah, that's a hell of a lot of points. But, if that's what they are able to accomplish, then hey, let them live. So Dover having the All-Star race, it doesn't bother me. It's whatever. Then, of course, the Coca-Cola 600. Memorial Day weekend, of course, Nashville Super Speedway. After that, Meat Chicken with the Firekeepers Casino 400, and then Pocono, and then the replacement for the Chicago street course race. It says Coronado Street Course. But it's taking place on a naval base. So I guess you could say this is an airport circuit, basically. We haven't had an airport circuit since 1954, which was Linden Airport, I believe. And the interesting thing about that race, it was the only win for Jaguar in the Cup Series. The Enduro 250. The race the base at Coronado in San Diego, California. I honestly can't wait to see that race. That's going to be one of the anticipated ones. Then the next race after that is Sonoma, and it's going to be the start of the NASCAR In-Season Challenge, which they did last year, where it's basically like a March Madness type bracket between drivers, which was won by Ty Gibbs last year. Yeah. So he ended up winning $1 million. Whoop-de-fucking-do. So Sonoma, the next race after that. But then we have the replacement for the Chicago Street Course. They're still going to go back to Chicago. The return of Chicagoland Speedway. Why did we even take this track off the schedule to begin with? Because the last two races that they had there, I mean, they were some of the best races of the entire year. And that track was starting to come into its prime. So, after 7 years, they're going back to Chicagoland Speedway. So, there's that. I was shocked to see Watkins Glen is now going to be in May. Yeah, that was quite the big change. And then they're going back to Atlanta for the Quaker State 400. North Wilkesboro Speedway. Winter World 450. After 30 years and being dead for a lot of that time, North Wilkesboro Speedway has a points date. It's crazy. Absolutely crazy. And it's a 450 lap race. I guess they decided to add an extra 50 laps to it for whatever reason. But okay, whatever. And then the Brickyard 400, July the 26th. Who fucking cares? Because that race is usually Garbo anyway. Then we have Iowa Speedway for the Iowa Corn 350. Richmond, who's now only got one date this year. I mean, let's be honest here. I mean, having 2 dates, I mean, the track was pretty much a ghost town for both of those races, so it needed to lose a race, truth be told. So that'll be August 15th, and in New Hampshire, August 23rd, and then, of course, Daytona, Cook Zero Sugar 400 on August 29th, which is the Cup Chase cutoff. And it leads out with the Southern 500, of course, on Labor Day weekend. Gateway is September the 13th this year for the Enjoy Illinois 300. Of course, the Bristol Night Race. And then Kansas, Vegas, Charlotte Motor Speedway. Another big change that they did. No more Charlotte Roval. They're going back to 2 ovals for the Charlotte Motor Speedway. They're going to keep the fall race, though, at 400 miles instead of 500 like it used to be. So it'll be the Bank of America 400. Phoenix still has 2 dates, but is no longer the finale. Thank fucking God. And then you have Talladega on October the 25th, and then Martinsville, November the 1st. And then Homestead Miami Speedway as the championship finale. I like the schedule. I like it. So, that's good. That is good. So, for the first time in a while, I am actually looking forward to the 2026 season. I just saw that I had 9 people in here, so hey, welcome everybody. I know I'm going over a lot of shit that's kind of old news at this point, but I haven't done a fuel episode since December. So, kind of wanted to get all that stuff out of the way before we actually get into the first race review of 2026. That in mind, let's turn the episode music on. So we can get to the first race of the season, 2026 Cookout Clash at Bowman Gray Stadium. Excuse me. So I didn't watch the Last Chance qualifier. I heard it was a banger though. Crazy shit that went down the last couple laps. And I wasn't really able to. The season starts in Florida, ends in Florida. That's how it should be. True. Anyway, the 200 laps, caution laps do not count. And that's going to come back and bite them in the ass in this race, especially in the second one. But we'll address that when we get to it. So here we go. Kyle Larson won the pole. The 23 cars, 200 laps at Bowman Gray Stadium. Postponed to Wednesday, this past Wednesday, due to snow. The most snow that North Carolina has gotten in 20 years. Go figure. First of all, got a lot of fucking snow. We had that big ass snowstorm. Dumped feet of snow pretty much from the Midwest all the way up to the Northeast. We got about a foot and a half. So yeah, that was fun. At least we didn't get that ice that down south got, especially Tennessee. Tennessee got absolutely smacked by that ice. On lap 41, laps at Bowman go by quickly because it's only a quarter-mile bull run. And it's just for the race report, okay? So we start on lap 41, leader. Briscoe gets by Byron for second, lap 48. We have our second lap, lap 53, and first one incident. According to lap 53, Blaney, Bubba Wallace, and turns 22 sideways. He didn't go all the way around, but it was enough to bring up the clock. The Larson leads on the restart. We have our first full lead change on lap 55. They were actually side by side for a while. And there was actually 3 wide further back. 3 wide at Bowman Gray usually doesn't cut the road. But Larson was able to hold this up for a second full lead change. Lap 77, I think, was the best part of the race. I think it's where the most active as far as that race. But Byron gets under Larson's lead and takes it on lap 71, and then Larson really starts struggling, and that's basically the last we see of him. It's basically all downhill. But most of all, Blaney starts starting to go up front. Of course, we knew Blaney was going to do it. I mean, last year he was out for second last year and started that out. And he was the same way here. But a third caution on lap 77 after Bunker was in 97 this year. Last year he was 88. 88 is now Zilla's number. He's up to that guy. And Flores is now driving the 7 car. In fact, Suarez was getting a little bitchy on the radio about certain people doing SVG, so yeah. We start on lap 77 with Byron as the leader. Let's go back on lap 5 struggle. He actually took the outside wall. Let's go from Byron to 4th, Gibson hustled already by Byron. Halfway break, so under the halfway break they can do any of the normal shit that they can do on a pit stop. None of the normal pit crew guys were there because, you know, not live pit stop. But then under the halfway break it actually starts sleeting. Not raining, sleeting. Yeah. So it takes a while for this band of sleet to go through the area. So they have to mount the wet weather tires. From this point forward, this race goes downhill. So we finally get to the start. So it gives us Briscoe actually goes outside to take the lead because, well, you can barely hear me. Music isn't that loud. it really the episode music that was doing that? Motherfucker. Wonder why I was doing that. That doesn't make any sense. That makes no sense whatsoever. Oh, I know what it is. I had it on monitor and output. That's why I was doing that. It was probably double tracking. Motherfucker, that's my bad. There we go. Alright, well, in that case, I guess I'll just restart from the beginning. That's my bad. I apologize for that. But it should be fixed now. So let's start from the beginning. 200 laps. Caution laps don't count. Kyle Larson started from the pole. He led lap 1. Got a battle for 5th between Hamlin and Buescher. First caution was a lap 41 for debris. We had Larson as the leader on the restart. Briscoe gets by Byron for second on lap 48. You can tell it's been a while since I've done this, so yeah. But it should be fixed now. I apologize for that. But Briscoe gets by Byron for second on lap 48. Caution number 2 comes out on lap 53 when there was an accordion effect in turn 3, sending Blaney into Bubba Wallace and turning 23 sideways. Larson leads the next restart, but Chase Briscoe gets by. Well, actually, side by side. Sounds a lot better. Yeah, I fixed it. Yeah, the episode music was actually on output. So it was, because this microphone is fucking weird, because it also doubles as a speaker, which is weird. So anytime that there's shit going on, it kind of double tracks. It's stupid. I honestly need to get a new microphone, a better one. But anyway. So Chase Briscoe and Larson are side by side for the lead, resulting in the first pure lead change on lap 55. There's 3 wide further back, but Larson was able to hold Briscoe at bay for a second pure lead change on lap 57. Byron comes back into the fray for second with Ty Gibbs not far behind. Byron gets under Larson for the lead for a third pure lead change on lap 71, and it's at this point that Larson starts struggling quite a bit, and that's pretty much all we'll see him at the front. It's all downhill from here for him. Hocevar and Blaney starts charging towards the front. We get our third caution on lap 77 when Austin Cindric spins in turn 4 after a bump from SVG. So we have Byron restarting as the race leader. Hocevar gets by Larson for 4th as the 5 continues to struggle. He actually clips the outside wall at this point. Briscoe starts pressuring Byron for the lead and takes it for a 4th pure lead change on lap 85. Gibbs and Hocevar get by Byron for 2nd and 3rd as the 24 starts to struggle now as well. So there was lots of battling in the top 5 between Byron, Hocevar, Blaney, and Hamlin. Gibbs starts pressuring Briscoe for the lead late in the first half of this race, then gets the 5th pure lead change on lap 96. And then we get to the halfway break with Ty Gibbs as the leader. And under the halfway break, they can do the normal things that they can do on a pit stop. But the regular pit group guys aren't there. They're going to be at Daytona next week. But then, during the halfway break, it actually starts sleeting. So the weather wasn't actually done with NASCAR at this point. So I had to wait for quite a bit for the sleet to clear out of the area. And they mounted up the wet tires, and from here on out, the race turned into a massive shit show. So, got all that caught up since I had to restart the review after the double tracking because this microphone sucks. So again, I apologize for that. Now we get to the second half of the event. Gibbs restarts as the leader, but Briscoe actually takes the lead on the outside because wet conditions. So it actually, in wet conditions, it's actually a lot better to take a wider arc than trying to cut it in. We got our 4th caution on lap 101, basically immediately after the restart. Hamlin loses grip and slides right into Kyle Larson, who spins around along with Kyle Busch as Hamlin basically tries to take control, try to regain control, and actually ends up in the grass. And Ryan Preece was also involved, but it won't be the last time we hear of him. So Briscoe restarts as the leader. Hocevar goes way on the inside, 3 wide to take the lead, but actually clip the drains that they have down on the inside of the track. In the wet, the outside groove has become a viable option at this point, which is crazy. Connor Zilic was now up to 5th on lap 109. Blaney actually starts plummeting through the field in the wet conditions, so his car evidently was working a lot better in the dry as opposed to the wet. We have our 5th caution on lap 120 when Josh Perry gets into the wall on the front stretch, which actually causes them to get loose and go into the wall in turn 1. So a lot of damage to the 21 car. The Briscoe restarts as the leader, lots of 3 wide on the restart, and then we get our 6th caution on lap 122 when Bowman gets into Cindric, which turns him sideways right in front of Blaney and Bubba Wallace. So that cut the left front tire down on Austin Cindric. So Briscoe restarts in the lead once again, but then Carson Hocevar decides to full send it into turn 1 and actually takes the lead from Briscoe on the restart. Pretty bold move, but it ended up working out. There was actually 4 wide for a moment, which is yeesh. They barely have enough room for 3 wide. Gibbs gets knocked sideways in front of Elliott, who actually bumped him going into turn 3, but no caution this time around. Briscoe has run Hocevar back down for the race lead at this point. Blaney actually spins in turn 2, but again, no caution. We have SVG, Gibbs, and Byron involved in a heated top 5 battle. We have our 7th caution of the day on lap 139 when Hamlin goes around in turn 3 after getting into Bowman and actually spinning himself out. So Hocevar restarts as the leader, but then we got our next caution, the very next lap, when Austin Dillon goes around after contact on Big Hamlin in turn 2. So Hamlin turning himself into a bit of a wrecking ball here. Next restart, SVG gets a better restart and actually takes the lead from Hocevar. So yes, SVG to the lead on a short track over. Good for him. Priest at this point is up to 3rd though, and he was up to 3rd after spinning out earlier, like at the very beginning of the second half of the race. But he's now up to 3rd, so you can pass at Bowman Stadium. So we have our 9th caution on lap 143 when Elliott spins out in turn 4 after contact with Logano. And this is where that no caution penalty rule was kind of starting to bite them in the ass. Because now fuel was actually becoming an issue. Yeah, fuel. In a 200 lap, quarter-mile short track race. So SVG restarts as the leader, but we immediately get our 10th caution on lap 143 when Logano loses it going into turn 3 and gets hit by Elliott and Hamlin. The Priest restarts as the leader because he actually took it on the previous restart, but then SVG takes it back on this restart. Then we got our 11th caution on lap 145, so barely 2 laps. Zilic gets into Gibbs and basically dumps him. It was just a straight dump. And it collected a lot of cars, including Hocevar, Busch, who actually was moving up through the field by taking different lines in the choose cone. So all that goes to race, as well as Buescher, Reddick, and Bell. And at this point I was like, man, this is stupid. So SVG restarts as the leader on lap 145. Suarez was actually up to the top 5 on lap 147 in the 7th car, but at this point door slamming was becoming more and more common. Basically with the wet conditions, these drivers were basically driving into the corner and basically trying to shove people out of the groove, the dry groove that was actually beginning to form in the high lane. So that was becoming more and more of a thing that was happening. And then Larson was slow on the track and actually brought out the caution, the 12th one on lap 154 after running out of fuel. And this is the problem with having the entire race caution lap rule. I think they should come back to Bowman Gray next year for the Clash, but maybe think about changing the no caution lap rule to maybe only being inside like the last 20 laps or something like that, because having the entire race have that rule is kind of stupid, and it's a big reason why this race went 3 hours, which shouldn't have happened. Of course, these drivers losing their fucking brains in the second half of this race didn't help matters, but having a no caution counting rule for the entire race is kind of stupid. Last 25 laps, I can understand. The entire race, kind of dumb. Change it. Anyway, SVG restarts as the leader on lap 154, but Ryan Preece basically muscles his way by on lap 156 for a 6th pure lead change of the day. Pretty aggressive move in turn 4, but it gets in the lead. And that is the last we see of any lead changes, because he leads the rest of the way. But there was some other shit that happened that caused a bit of controversy. So, Briscoe gets SVG out of the way for second. We have a 13th caution on lap 165 when Elliott runs out of fuel. And then, at this point, because the race kind of went over its allotted run time, Fox decided to dump the race to FS2 for the Masked Singer. And I just gotta ask the question, who in the fuck cares about the Masked Singer in 2026? Not me, I'll tell you that much. Anyway, moving on. Preece is the leader on lap 165, but then Chase Briscoe, what the fuck was this? Just absolutely dumps SVG in turn 3 like a total fucking retard. And his teammate Zillage is also collected, as well as Bubba Watts. Like, this was an absolutely dumb fucking move from Briscoe. Like, I mean, the line was drying out. There was no excuse. I'm sorry. And then NASCAR decided they wanted to make themselves a story, in a bad way, by making the decision to let everyone come to pit road for fuel without penalty. Something that the 19 team, especially James Small, was not happy about. And I don't blame him for having that. And Eric Estep was basically like, well, I'm just going to give him the benefit of the doubt on this one because the first race of the year. No. After 20 years of bullshit, NASCAR is not going to get any benefit of the doubt from me whatsoever. Now, that's not to say that I'm going to completely shit on them every single chance I get, because I'm still going to be fair with my assessment. If I like something, I'll say it. If I hate something, I'll say it. I'm still going to be fair in my assessment. But having this mindset of giving them the benefit of the doubt, even though it's the first race of the season, well, it's just an exhibition race, I don't give a fuck. If they fuck up, I'm going to call them out on it, period. Because that is what you're supposed to do as a race reviewer. Give them props for good things that happen, but you also call them out on their bullshit. Period. So Preece restarts as the leader on lap 165. Austin Dillon and Ryan Blaney gain physical for fifth. Bear in mind, these guys talk about disappointing the fans when they switched to Fox Sports 2, and many people have that. Not many people have that channel. Yeah, not very many people have cable in general because of the rise of streaming and all that shit. Although, when you look at some of these streaming services continuing to raise their prices, I mean, how long is streaming going to be viable at this point? I mean, Netflix is saying that they're going to be charging $49.99 for their service now, and I remember when that shit was less than $10. I mean, what the fuck kind of programming that Netflix has that is going to make people want to pay 50 fucking bucks a month for their service? when you can get Amazon Prime Video for a lot cheaper than that. And honestly, a lot of the programming that they got on their service is a lot better than Netflix at a fraction of the price. Just my opinion. But anyway, Suarez gets up to third in the 7 car. He gets by Briscoe for second. Byron goes with him for third. Byron gets by Suarez for second in 7. It's freight trained by a couple cars. And we got our 15 caution on lap 181 when Hussler gets bumped by Bubba. Of course, they were going back and forth for a little bit. And then Bubba just absolutely dumps Hussler's shit down the front stretch. Or down the back stretch, excuse me. After a physical battle for position. So the tempers were definitely flaring at this point. Reese leads on the restart on lap 181, gets a great restart. Then we get our final caution on lap 182 when Kyle Busch gets into the wall. And that basically causes a chain reaction crash where Kyle Larson basically gets caught in a 4-wide situation and gets absolutely obliterated. So yeah, like I said, it started out good for Larson, but it was all downhill after he lost it. Final restart on lap 182 with Priest as the leader, and he gets another great restart. Blaney was up to second, which after all his problems, he restarted second, and he looked pretty fast. But Byron was actually able to get back by Blaney to take second. But Priest was able to drive away and gets his first win in a Cup car. It's not a points-paying event, but he wins the Cookout Clash at Bowman Gray Stadium and becomes just the 3rd driver after Jeff Gordon and Denny Hamlin to win the Clash before their first points event. And Priest was emotional in victory lane, even though this was just the Clash. It was just an exhibition race. I mean, you could tell he was emotional, dropping an F-bomb during the interview, which was fucking hilarious. But I honestly don't blame him. It's been a long road for him. And a couple years ago, he didn't even know if he was even going to be in Cup anymore. You know, and then, Roush Fenway, Keselowski Racing gave him a call to drive the 60 car, and he's been doing pretty decently in that car. So, obviously, starting out on a high for that 60 team, and we'll see where it takes them heading into 2026. And that is the Cookout Clash at Bowman Gray Stadium. So, yep, that's what I thought. 1 second. This is also monitor and output. There we go. So, race results. No point standings since this is an exhibition race. But here are your race results. Ryan Preece, with the victory, led the final 46 laps. William Byron finished second after starting second. Notice where Ryan Preece started. He started 18th. Basically near the back of the pack in a 23-car field, and drove his way up to the front and won. A lot of guys that were basically outside the top 15 made it up to the top 5. You had William Byron, who started second, finished second, but Ryan Blaney started 16th, finished third. Daniel Suarez, in his first outing with the 7 car for Spire Motorsports, started 20th, finished 4th. Nicely done. And Denny Hamlin still gets back to the top 5 despite all of his second half troubles. Then you have Briscoe, Austin Dillon, Chris Buescher, Ross Chastain, and Alex Bowman rounding out the top 10. Rest of the field, Logano, Berry, Bell, Gibbs, Hocevar. Kyle Larson led the most laps with 67, but obviously had all, after losing the lead, it was just downhill from there. Chase Elliott, Connor Zilisch, Kyle Busch, Shane Van Gisbergen finished 20th because he basically got his shit dumped by Chase Briscoe. Then you had Austin Cindric, Tyler Reddick, who was nowhere, and Bubba Wallace, who finished 1 lap down. As for my final rating for the 2026 Cookout Clash at Bowman Gray Stadium. The first half of the race was pretty solid. There were some good points in it. And while I'm not saying that the second half didn't have its moments, I mean, the second half was a fucking mess. And then you add in the fact that, they dumped the race to FS2. That's not on NASCAR, really. That's on Fox. Before that, Priest was mostly known for his 2 flips at Daytona in 2023 and 2025. I don't blame him for being emotional in his interview. Yep, exactly. But, yeah, the second half of this race was just dog shit, really. We only had 3 cautions in the first half and then 13 in the second half. I don't count the halfway break as a caution. I just don't. I mean, it's a halfway break. So that's just how I feel about that. So 16 total cautions, which if you look at the official count, it's 17, which is a Clash record. So that's never a good thing. But 13 cautions in the second half of this race. Of course, a lot of it has to do with these drivers just throwing their brains out the window. But then you get into the fact that you have guys running out of fuel, and then NASCAR decides, we're just going to let everybody fuel without penalty. And apparently there were 2 teams that were trying to change tires, and NASCAR's like, no, you can't do that. It's like, what is NASCAR so afraid of trying to keep people on the same tires? I mean, if they want to change tires to go back to dries, give them the freedom to do that. Stop with this tire regulating bullshit. I mean, seriously, let fucking races play out naturally. For fuck's sake. So, Ryan Preece actually winning this race brings it back up a little bit because, honestly, this was feeling like a 3 with how the second half of this event went. But I'm going to give the Cookout Clash a 4 out of 10. I'm going to go on my Bret Hart shit. Like I said, solid first half of the race. Terrible second half. But that can be attributed to the weather and drivers deciding, we're going to play bumper cars now. And then NASCAR being total fucking tards on officiating. What else is new? So, and Mark Martin basically commented on, how people were, being critical of the race. And it's like, well, maybe we shouldn't say anything at all. It's like, bro, we have a right to be critical if we deem it necessary. A lot of us have gone through 20 years of bullshit with this company, and a lot of us are just not going to give this company the benefit of the doubt anymore, and they don't deserve it. Especially with a lot of the bullshit that we've seen the last 2 years, which led to them being sued. And on that note, Richard Childress, he says he's not going to let those text messages lay at rest. I mean, he's honestly considering legal action against the company himself. So, there's that to consider as well. So, it's just crazy. But, well, we've come to the end of the first review of 2026. Who the fuck thought we'd be back doing NASCAR reviews again? Because, I honestly didn't know if I was going to come back to doing this with the playoffs being in place and all that shit. I was like, I didn't know if I wanted to come back, but they finally got rid of the playoffs. It's the chase, which again, is not completely what I want, but I can live with it. So, and with a lot of new tracks on the schedule and all that other shit, 2026, I think, is going to be a pretty interesting year. I'm not going to say it's going to be a great year because we don't know what the hell's going to happen. It's going to be an interesting year, to say the least. So, next week, the Daytona 500 to kick off the 2026 season. And hopefully, we don't get rain delayed because right now they're calling 60% chance for rain. Because, of course, there's no other days that has rain other than the Daytona 500. Because, of course, it does. But, we'll wait and see what happens. 12 people watching this review. Maybe I should have gone back to doing NASCAR reviews to begin with. I don't know. Whatever. But, anywho, thank you very much for watching this edition of The Fuel. in this review of the Cookout Clash at Bowman Gray Stadium. And until next time, this is the PackerMan signing out. And by the way, it's good to be back doing this. See you next week. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Whoa, whoa, whoa.